After only 8 months in charge, Tottenham sacked their manager, Thomas Frank, on Wednesday. That was the 11th of February 2026. Remember, the 52-year-old Danish gaffer was appointed on 12th June 2025, coming out of Brentford to take charge of the North London side. Well, what caused his sacking? That's what we'll be talking about, and then who are among the options that they could be looking at as potential replacements. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. I hope you guys have been doing well. Thank you so much to all our new subscribers that have recently subscribed to the channel. Welcome to the Football Tribe UG community. Well, yeah, we all know that Thomas Frank was sacked after a poor run of results. Yes, the 52-year-old Danish manager recorded only 2 victories in 17 Premier League games, those coming against Brentford and Crystal Palace. So the results were not going in any upward trajectory, and so they decided to show him the exit. He does leave the team in as low as 16th place on the Premier League log with only 29 points after 26 games played. That means he averages about, I think, 1.1 point per game. Anyways, so that decision was taken, but of course, there are other factors. You look at their poor performance against Chelsea in November in that 1-0 defeat, in which they hardly registered, an XG, because I think they had a 0.01. Then subsequent to that, they lost in the North London derby by 4-1 against Arsenal. And come January 2026, they did lose to AFC Bournemouth by 3-2 with Antoine Semenyo scoring the winning goal in that one before making his move to Manchester City, a game in which Thomas Frank was pictured drinking coffee from an Arsenal-branded coffee cup, which left him under no favors or homage in the hearts of the Tottenham Hotspur fans, who we know are arch rivals to the Gunners. Whereas it may have been an innocent mistake, he didn't do enough to make a case for himself. Instead of joking about it, he went to the defensive, and perhaps that was among the many accusations they did. Their 2-1 loss against Newcastle on Tuesday night on match day 26 of the Premier League merely turned out to be the final stroke that broke the camel's back when he was sacked subsequent to that, after telling the world that he was 1000% sure he will be in charge of the same team by the 22nd of February 2026, when the Tottenham Hotspur take on Arsenal in the return leg of the North London derby. Well, it's one thing to expect, it's another that then turns out, because he was sacked after that. So many things did not go his way, including losing the dressing room, because he did say, I think it was in the pre-match press conference prior to the game against Newcastle, that some of his players do not think of him as a big block. That speaks to say that perhaps they did not have much confidence in his abilities or his tactics, that he was the right man for the job. Was he the right man for the job? It's hard to say, because Tottenham Hotspur over the years, ever since they part ways with Harry Redknapp back in 2012, who had been in charge between 2008 and 2012, they went on to have a bit of a turbulent spell with managers, and then of course they had some stability under Mauricio Pochettino. But ever since that, things took a nosedive, because just to take you back in history, when they part ways with Harry Redknapp, they appointed a former Chelsea manager and ex-FC Porto boss, that's Andrea Villas-Boas. He took charge of them, I think, through the 2012-2013 season. They part ways with him and had Tim Sherwood appointed to the team for the 2013-2014 Premier League campaign. When that ended, that is when they took on Mauricio Pochettino, who had started his coaching career at Espanyol in 2009 and then moved to Southampton in January 2013. He then managed Southampton for a year and a half, guiding them to, I think, an 8th place finish, which was their highest at the time since 2002-2003 season. So there, he made the switch to Tottenham Hotspur, where he was between 2014 to 2019. In 2019, he guided the team to a UEFA Champions League final in which they lost to Liverpool by 2-0. But also in one of those campaigns, he had guided Tottenham to a 2nd place finish in the Premier League. Also, a 3rd place finish in the 2015-2016 Premier League season when Leicester City won the Premier League title, with Arsenal finishing 2nd. So He had made them mainstays within Europe. He always argued that Tottenham was not built to win a League Cups. In other words, he sort of poured some water on the Carabao Cup, saying that Tottenham should be competing for the UEFA Champions League and the Premier League title. Then 6 months after taking them to the finals of the UEFA Champions League, he was sacked. Now, he did not leave voluntarily. He was sacked. And when he was sacked, Tottenham moved to appoint Jose Mario Felix Mourinho. When they appointed Jose Mourinho, he did his bit, and sometime in April 2021, he was sacked just days before their EFL Cup final against Manchester City, which they subsequently lost by a 0-0 that was scored by Ilkay Gundogan in the final. Now, when Jose Mourinho left, of course, Ryan Mason took over, I think, as an interim before the appointment of Nuno Espirito Santo in the summer. When Nuno Espirito Santo was appointed, he only lasted a couple of months because by November, he had been shown the exit before being replaced by Antonio Conte. So that means in Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, they had a proven winner. And yet still, during all that spell, they still did not win anything. So Antonio Conte took them throughout the remainder of the 2021-2022 Premier League season and started the 2022-2023 Premier League season. Unfortunately for him, he did not conclude it with Tottenham Hotspur as he went on an attack of the mentality around the club and its bosses, of the lack of a winning mentality. They're not built for it, and things of that kind that he alluded to. Well, he was shown the exit, and his assistant then, Christian Stellini, took over as an interim. But even for him, results did not take a change, and therefore he was equally fired before Ryan Mason took charge of the team until the end of the season. Then, for the 2023-2024 Premier League campaign, they appointed Ange Postecoglou, coming out of Celtic, where he had done tremendously well. Well, the Australian international did well, guiding them to a 5th place finish in his debut campaign, but things took a different turn after that. He did suggest after his first season, when they finished 5th, that they needed to sign very good players, the likes of Antoine Semenyo, Bryan Mbeumo, Matthias Cunha, Mark Kehi, but the club instead decided to only sign Dominic Solanke and a couple of youngsters, and that was not a squad good enough for them to compete, both in Europe, where they had qualified for the UEFA Europa League, and then also compete domestically. The subsequent season, we saw Tottenham Hotspur decline tremendously in the Premier League, losing 22 Premier League games, subsequently finishing 17th on the Premier League log, while Ange Postecoglou concentrated on winning the UEFA Europa League, in which they beat Manchester United by a 0-0 in the finals, thanks to that goal scored by Byron Johnson and San Mamés in Spain. Regardless of winning them their first major title in about 17 years, their last having come against Chelsea in the EFL Cup in 2008, when they beat Chelsea by 2-1 to win it, that did not spare him because he was still shown the exit. When he was shown the exit, a replacement had to be made. Well, that replacement was Thomas Frank. Did it work out? Well, 8 months have proven that they have not worked out, or it has not worked out. Well, it wasn't all doom and gloom because it is the same manager that guided Tottenham Hotspur to a 4th place finish in the UEFA Champions League at the league phase, finishing above so many teams. The teams like Manchester City, teams like Barcelona, teams like Real Madrid, who could not make it to the top 8, teams like PSG, the UEFA Champions League winning champions, teams with pedigree like Juventus, among a whole host of others. In that run of 8 games, they only lost one, won 5, and drew 2 games. So it wasn't all bad, but it was domestically where they got knocked out of all cup competitions, and the Premier League results were not coming. Like I said, only 2 wins against Crystal Palace and Brentford in their last 17 games. Eventually, in their final game against Newcastle at home, which they lost by 2-1, their home form not helping, the fans did chant that he was getting the sack in the morning, while they also chanted their love for Mauricio Pochettino, the same manager that was sacked. You remember when he was sacked back in, after in the 2019-2020 season, not all fans were okay with his sacking. Yes, results at the time were not going his way, but some still held him in high regard. Up until this day, he too holds the club in high regard and speaks glowingly about them and dreams of the day that he will return someday to manage it. At the moment, he is the head coach of the US national team ahead of the World Cup, and they are the host nation, or one of the host nations for the FIFA World Cup. Well, so those are some of the problems that caused, Thomas Frank to be sacked. Now, in the work of the fact that he's been sacked, who could be his replacement? Definitely, the search will be on for a new permanent manager. But for now, the club are seeking for an interim boss that can guide them through the remainder of the 12 Premier League season, while also taking charge of the UEFA Champions League games. Among the names that have been floated around is Roberto Di Zerbi, who not far back, that was on February the 10th, equally part ways with Olympique Marseille on mutual agreement following a humiliating defeat against PSG by 5-0 in the French League One. Now, on top of that, they had crashed out of the UEFA Champions League in addition to that. But he does have Premier League experience, having managed Brighton and Hove Albion for 2 campaigns, in which, in his debut campaign, he guided them to a 6th place finish. You'd assume that a team with Tottenham's resources, perhaps he can do better. But he's just one of the many names that are being floated around, not as just an interim, but perhaps even for the long haul. Former Barcelona manager Xavi Hernandez, we know this one, won the La Liga title, I think in the 2022-2023 campaign with Barcelona, really conceding only 20 goals, very attacking football, also defensively solid, winning Barcelona their first league title in 4 years. So he is highly sought after. And then former Chelsea manager in Enzo Maresca is another name that has been floated around as a possible replacement for Thomas Frank. We know what Enzo Maresca did with Chelsea, helping them win the UEFA Conference League, as well as the inaugural expanded edition of the FIFA Club World Cup. Then the other name is Xabi Alonso. While he was sacked, I think on the 12th of January at Real Madrid, even though the statement did say it was a mutual parting of ways, but we know better. We know his work that he did at Bayer Leverkusen, particularly in the 2022-2023 season, as well as the subsequent season 2023-2024, when he went on to win the double, winning the German Bundesliga and the DFB Pokal, in addition to which he guided the club to a final in the UEFA Europa League, in which they lost against Atlanta by 3-0, which was their only loss of the season. The subsequent season, he saw them finish second on the German Bundesliga table. So he's another name that he's being sought after. But like I said, the name that is being talked about the most, because fans were even chanting his name in their defeat against Newcastle, is Mauricio Pochettino. Will he return to the club? We can never say never. In fact, the chances of him returning are much higher than the chances of Jose Mourinho getting reappointed as a Tottenham manager. So we'll just have to wait and see. The other name that has been mentioned in the wake of that is Edin Terzic. This one managed Borussia Dortmund back, I think, in 2023 and 2024. He guided them to the DFB Pokal Cup win in that year, 2023, and also the UEFA Champions League final in 2024, when they went on to lose to Real Madrid by 2-0 in the final. So those are some of the names that have been floated around. But let's not forget, managers like Oliver Glasner could be in the running for the job, because at the end of the season, he will be parting ways with Crystal Palace. And Don Iroyola at Bournemouth, his contract runs out this summer, and he's yet to renew it. So we'll have to wait and see. While there's been some long-standing interest in Marco Silva. Well, with Marco Silva at Fulham, we do not know whether the recent sackings of Ange Postecoglou as well as Thomas Frank have left him quite still enthusiastic about the job. We'll only have to wait and see. So those are Tottenham's options should they seek to reappoint a manager. But in the purposes of an interim, their former manager, Tim Sherwood, said he would not hesitate to take the job if he were to be given the chance to steer the club forward until the end of the season. Roy Mason is another name that is a possibility. Regardless of what you think about him, as well as Harry Redknapp, could be called upon out of retirement to come and help the club until the end of the season. So we'll have to wait and see who Tottenham Hotspur do appoint next for their manager. That's it from me. Do let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if it's your first time here. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. And thank you for choosing the Football Tribe UG channel to be your ears in the world of football. Thank you.